Welcome back to the channel. It has been about a year plus absence. Life has taken a lot of turns, most of them positive, but I have landed again in an apartment and in a new town. I'm out in the suburbs of New York on Long Island at this point, and ready to start recording, hopefully more regularly, updating some content. So I wanted to start with, I took a look at my content recently, and I had started a while back to do a full book by book review of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, starting with Eye of the World and ostensibly ending with Memory of Light. And I recorded two shows, both one for the Eye of the World, one for The Great Hunt. I did read The Dragon Reborn and make notes on it, and then also read Shadow Rising, and then got to Fires of Heaven. Now, my history with this series is I discovered it back in the early 1990s when it was being written. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I was in a bookstore on Hollywood Boulevard because I lived there, and I saw a big trade paperback of The Great Hunt, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And then saw a small trade of Eye of the World with this incredible Darrell K. Sweet cover. I love it. The cover paintings of those books are so great. I think Darrell K. Sweet did them until A Memory of Light because he died, and then I think they got Michael Whalen to do the final book, which is beautiful as well. So I read The Eye of the World. I thought it was the greatest fantasy I had come across since Tolkien, frankly. Wonderfully written and rich and dense, Tolkien-ish derivative. The Great Hunt then, and I read it, was reading them then as they were coming out year after year, until I got to Fires of Heaven. And I've always stalled at Fires of Heaven. I've gone back to reread the first 5 books probably 3 or 4 times. And I start with Eye of the World and The Great Hunt, and I'm excited. This time I'm going to do it. This time I'm going to finish. I get to Fires of Heaven, I stall. So I did it again last fall, I think, or actually 2 falls ago, 2 years ago. And I thought, all right, that's it. I have the channel now. I have a booktube channel. I'm going to do this every book I'm going to review. And I got to Fires of Heaven and I stalled out. So I thought I wanted to do just an episode on, I finally come to the conclusion that I am not going to continue with the Wheel of Time any longer. I'm done. And it's funny because I adore the first 4 books. I adore them. I think they are wonderful books. But once Fires of Heaven kicks in, his style really, they say the slog doesn't happen until, 3 books down the line. And here's another thing, okay? I love to read and I love good books. But I'm not going to approach a series where devotees of the series say, well, yeah, okay, you have to get through 4. It's the slog. There are 4 books, each of them, around 600, 700 pages that you kind of just have to get through. Like, what are you, crazy? It's like chewing cardboard. Like, how could you do that? How could you? So my thoughts are these. I love what he's done. I think as a prose stylist in the fantasy genre right now, well, he's not living anymore, but in terms of more contemporary writers, I don't think there's a better prose stylist around. And that's why I really appreciated him, because his prose style is very strong. His sentences are great, very propulsive, very active verbs. He's got a great style. He can do dialogue. He's wonderful at description. The magic system is great. The world is great. It's a terrific read. And I do love it. I do love the first 4 or 5 books. I think they're great. But what happens with Jordan is that even on the 3rd and 4th books, when you start pushing forward, the discipline, and the thing is with fantasy writers, I think, there are literary writers and fantasy writers, and you throw those terms around. Literary writers tend to have strong editorial pushback, where I think because a literary writer is really concerned about the literary merit of the book, and the imprints that maybe put these writers out, somebody like maybe Cutsy or, Ian McCowan, I don't think they're just going to their editors are just going to put out any book that they write without any editorial pushback. I could be completely wrong. But there's the case of Raymond Carver and Gordon Lish, where nobody really knows who's mostly responsible for Carver's style, Carver or Lish, because Carver would send things to Gordon Lish, and Lish would like strip them away to this intense, bare bones style, which now Carver is known for. Raymond Carver is like one of the writers that probably every MFA program in the country, he's on the reading list. That terse prose style, very pared down, each sentence, each word, doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's all over the New Yorker most of the time. But that style came about because Carver presented stuff to Gordon Lish, and Gordon Lish pushed back and said, let's do this thing. And so they created this wonderful style. Robert Jordan's editor was his wife, Harriet McDougall. Now, I don't know what literary merit Harriet McDougall has at all. I don't know if she's the kind of editor that just finds writers, right? She found Jordan, so she has some kind of acumen where she saw what was best, where she saw something in this guy, married him. But Jordan's like Stephen King. They don't have editors because genre fiction, the genre editors, they kind of take a step back and they're like, hey, look, I don't know what this guy's writing, but we're selling boatloads. We're knocking down forests to sell this guy's books. Stephen King, he writes a book called The Laundry List, and it's a laundry list. We sell 2 million copies. What editor is going to step in and say, hey, King, I think you could lose a third of this, or I think this is way off? Nobody gives a shit. And I think the same goes for fantasy writers. I don't think, guys, I don't think George R.R. Martin's editor, if you had an editor, ever pushed back and said, George, you're bloating and you're blah, 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 blah. Nobody gave a crap. All they cared about was, when is the book going to be and how much can we sell? So I think, unfortunately, genre craftsmanship is just lower. They say science fiction and fantasy is a ghetto, and I don't know if that's true, but the editorial quality of the books is much less than because that's not, they're more concerned with are there dragons in it? Does it move? Is there action on the first page? We want to sell these books. We want to move copies, right? And so Jordan had his wife as an editor. And there's no way that Harriet McDougall probably is going to push back. I mean, what editor would get, for instance, Jordan wrote a book, if you haven't made it all the way, Crossroads of Twilight. Haven't read it. It's, I think, book 10 of the 14-book series. And from all accounts, nothing absolutely happens in this book. It's almost kind of it's like another perspective on the previous book that happened, which was also supposedly nothing happened either. And nothing happened in the book before that. What editor of any stripe is going to take that book and say, this is bullshit. This is a first draft of something you have nothing. Go back and give me a book where something happens, right? Except his edit, Harriet McDougall, his editor/wife, takes the book, brings it to Tor. Tor says, anything Robert Jordan publishes sells on the New York Times bestseller list. We don't give a shit about the content of the book. Whatever's between those two hardcover pages, we could give a shit. Just get it in on time and let's get it published. And so, unfortunately for Jordan, and probably, look, writing a book is one thing, right? But crafting a novel and finishing it out probably takes some outside help from an editor who cares. Someone who says, hey, I know you spent 2 months on this one subject, this one section, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work in the story. It's actually at cross purposes with what you're actually trying to do here. And that's good editing. So Jordan has no editor. So whatever he writes, he sits down, and if he wants to spend 200 pages writing about a character's clothing, he can, and it'll sell. I almost blame his fans more than anything. Like, why are you buying this shit over and over and over again? Why are you putting his books on the bestseller list? So I'm reading him, and then what's happening with me is his integrity is gone. As with Fires of Heaven, I'm starting to recognize his integrity is like, I don't trust this guy anymore. The books are starting to become 200 pages of rehashing. By the way, this is we want to just kind of rehash what's been going on. We're going to hang out with the characters for a while and have some coffee. We're going to kind of tell you a little bit about what's going on, blah, 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 blah. Okay, 200 pages in, now we're going to start. So they start very, very slow. They build, and then his third acts become these sliver things. In a weird way, the way Jordan writes his books is the third act climax ends the book, and the denouement, which is supposed to be the come down from it, starts in the next book. It's bizarre. So, and then, so you have these wonderful climaxes, and then the books abruptly end, and then you're back with the next book where you have these extended prologues, and then these setup scenes. And Jordan and McDougall are both like, okay, we want to design these books so that if a casual fan comes in and picks up book 7, we're going to, when you're talking concepts about the magic or about the world, we're going to give them a refresher course. And it's not, no casual fan is going to buy book 7 of a fantasy book series. It's just not going to happen. They'll go get the first book if the word is good. So as someone reading it book after book, you get tired of this. Like, he continues to recap, and it's over and over and over again, these repetitions of this is the history of this clan, and this is the history of this magic, and blah, 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 blah. So you're just like, yeah, I know, Rob. Like, I've been reading these books now for years. Like, let's get a move on, right? So, and then on top of it, after a while, it's very, I don't like the men versus women thing. The women are all very catty, and there's extended chapters of them just sitting around being catty and snappy with each other. I understand that that's a way to create drama, where you have these characters that are kind of like the Aes Sedai upper echelon are really cruel to the novices. And after a while, they sit around and they talk, and it's usually about stuff that we already know. No, there's no drama in it. They're just recapping, and then they're just gossiping and catty, very retrograde. And then the characters are great, but after a while they stall. Like, you build up the set of characters, and then you just get the sense in Jordan that now he wants to write 15 more books, but he doesn't have 15 more books worth of material. So he's really just kind of spinning plates. And you feel it as a reader. You're just like, yeah, he's really dragging this out. If I had another lifetime, to prove my point, I think I would download all 14 books onto some kind of electronic format, put them in like a PC text file, and edit the series down into like 8 to 10 tight volumes. Because I think in the Wheel of Time, the 14 plus 15 with the prequel, in that series exists probably one of the greatest series in fantasy. If someone would go in and edit it and get rid of the slog and tighten things up and strip out the overdone introductions and shape the books better and pull out characters that don't matter and keep the world building, but stop the wayward sliding of all this crap, that it would be an unbelievable series. Just that it was tightly edited. If Jordan had a real editor that pushed back and said, what are you doing with the series? Where are you going? You're bloating. You're going to lose your readers. And he's like, I'm Robert Jordan. I can do whatever the hell I want. So anyway, suffice to say that I will probably keep in my collection the first 4 books of the series. And I'll probably go back for them from time to time because they're very enjoyable. But whenever I get to Fires of Heaven, I'm like, here he goes. He's gone, and I'm not going to wade through 6 more books to get to what purportedly is a better, the better books of the series. And I'm not a Brandon Sanderson fan either. I've read Mistborn, and it was okay. I enjoyed it. Did not want to progress in that series. I tried to read the first book of his Stormlight Archives. I just find him a very pedestrian writer, and it's almost like it's kind of YA. It's a little bit of YA for me, it's Brandon. I think he's a terrific guy, actually. I think he's I admire him as a kind of public fantasy writer, a creator. I mean, what he's like and what he does and how he comports himself. I really respect the guy, but I'm not a fan of his writing. So the promise that we're finally going to get to these last 3 books, and then I have to read 3,000-page Brandon Sanderson novels. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to post this because it was The Wheel of Time and my lack of finishing it has been kind of in my reading life for a long time. And I really want to finally, I think this video is more for me than anything. I want to put it to bed because I'm tired. There are so many more books to read. And I'm tired of this series kind of looming over me. And the expectation that like, oh, it's a 14-book series. You got to read it, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, I'm curious if there are any fans out there who have given up, if any of this rings true. And if any fans out there who have read the whole thing multiple times and think I'm a jackass, hey, it's the internet, man. Let me know, So I hope to be posting more regularly coming up, both with book reviews and film reviews, because I kind of watch both. I do both, I watch movies, I read books. So hopefully the posts will continue and this can be more of a regular thing for me. So thanks for watching.